Hey everyone, thanks for being here. Today I want to share a story that stuck with me. It's about a man named Ray Gricar, a district attorney who went for a drive one day in 2005 and never came back. No one knows what happened to him, and the mystery has left his family, friends, and investigators searching for answers ever since. This isn't just another missing person case. There are strange details, unanswered questions, and theories that will make you wonder what really went on. So let me tell you the story, and maybe together we can make some sense of it. On April 15th, 2005, Ray, 59 years old at the time, left home for a drive. He never came back. The next day, his car was found in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, parked across from an antiques mall. Now, Lewisburg is about 60 miles away from where Ray lived. The car was locked, and inside it was his cell phone, but there was no sign of Ray anywhere. So, what happened to him? Let's rewind and get to know Ray and the events leading up to that day. Ray Gricar was born on October 9th, 1945, in Cleveland, Ohio. He grew up in the Collinwood neighborhood, a quiet and determined guy who worked his way through Case Western Reserve University's law school to earn his degree. People who knew him would tell you he was intelligent, driven, and had a dry sense of humor. Eventually, Ray made his way to State College, Pennsylvania, where he became the district attorney of Center County in 1985. Over the years, he built a strong reputation, getting re-elected 4 times. By 2005, he was planning to retire after decades of hard work. Ray had a close bond with his family and was a lifelong Cleveland Browns and Indians fan. He was twice divorced and had an adopted daughter, Laura, with his first wife. In early 2005, Ray had also started dating a woman named Patty Fornicola, who worked in his office. They lived together in Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. Now, in the months leading up to his disappearance, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Sure, Ray had been napping more often, and he'd started asking questions about wiping the hard drive on his laptop. But given that he was about to retire, nobody thought much of it. Seemed like he was just tying up loose ends. On the morning of April 15th, Ray took a half day off work. He loved taking long drives to clear his mind, so when he told Patty he was heading down Route 192 toward Lewisburg and wouldn't be home in time to feed their dog, it didn't raise any red flags. But that was the last time Patty, or anyone, heard from Ray. When Patty got home from work that evening, Ray wasn't there. She figured he was still out driving and went to the gym, but by the time she got back, he still wasn't home. That's when worry started to creep in. By 11:30 p.m., Patty filed a missing persons report with the police. The question everyone was asking then, and still asks today, is, what happened to Ray Gricar? Stay with me, because this mystery only gets more puzzling. On the day Ray went missing, multiple witnesses came forward saying they'd seen him. Some saw him sitting in his red Mini Cooper parked near the Packwood House Museum in Lewisburg. One person even described him pacing back and forth outside the car before sitting down again, as if he was waiting for someone. But was he? That part's never been confirmed. There were also reports of a man who looked like Ray browsing an antique store in Lewisburg with an unidentified woman. But here's the thing. Ray's family didn't think it was actually him. So, we're left with more questions than answers. The last solid sighting of Ray happened around 5:30 p.m. that day. He was seen parking his car and then nothing. Now let's dive into the details investigators uncovered. They found out Ray had taken his laptop with him, which was odd because he left behind the case and the power supply at home. On top of that, none of his other belongings, no clothes, luggage, nothing, had been packed or removed from the house. The next day, his car turned up in a gravel parking lot outside an antique mall near the Susquehanna River. That's 55 miles from his home in Bellefonte. The car was locked, and inside, they found his cell phone, turned off. Missing, his laptop, keys, and wallet, and of course, Ray himself. But it gets stranger. Ray had recently bought software to wipe a computer's hard drive, and on the shared home computer with Patty, investigators found searches like how to fry a hard drive and water damage to a notebook computer. Why would someone like Ray, a meticulous professional, be looking up things like that? It seemed out of character, though some thought he might have been prepping his laptop for retirement. And then there's the MapQuest search. Earlier that week, someone used Ray's work computer to look up directions from Bellefonte to Lewisburg. But here's the thing. Ray had been to Lewisburg many times before. He didn't need directions, so was he planning to give them to someone else? One more detail to chew on. Investigators found cigarette ashes in Ray's car and noticed the smell of cigarette smoke inside. What's strange about that? Ray didn't smoke. In fact, he reportedly couldn't stand the smell of cigarettes. So, who was in the car with him? As if all that wasn't enough, Ray's disappearance brought back reminders of past tragedies of what happened to his older brother Roy nearly a decade earlier. In May 1996, Roy, who had recently retired, told his wife he was heading out to buy mulch and never came back. Days later, his car was found near the Great Miami River in Ohio, and his body was discovered in the river. Roy's death was ruled a suicide. Ray had been devastated by his brother's death, but here's the difference. Ray wasn't known to struggle with depression or suicidal thoughts. Some have wondered if there could be a connection between the brothers' stories, but no evidence has supported this idea. Then, in July 2005, 3 months after Ray vanished, a fisherman made a discovery in the Susquehanna River, Ray's laptop. But the hard drive wasn't in it. Later, the hard drive itself was found in a separate part of the river. Unfortunately, when investigators tried to recover data from the hard drive, they hit a dead end. It was too damaged to retrieve anything. This case is packed with mysteries and odd details, and it leaves us with one big question. What really happened to Ray Gricar? Let's talk about what Ray's family, friends, and investigators have shared about his mysterious disappearance. From the start, no one could make sense of it. There were no signs of foul play, no evidence that Ray wanted to run away or start a new life, and no reason to think he was unhappy. His daughter, Laura, spoke out shortly after he went missing, saying, "My heart aches deeply, very deeply, for your presence." Ray's girlfriend, Patty, made an emotional plea. "Ray, I love you very much, and I miss you. I want you to come home. Please call us. We will wait for as long as we need." Ray's friend, Bob Buhner, who was also a former district attorney, couldn't believe Ray would take his own life. He pointed out that Ray was looking forward to retirement, planning trips to visit his daughter in Seattle and explore national parks. Bob was convinced something sinister had happened. In fact, Bob tried to get the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office involved, but they declined, reportedly because the Attorney General at the time, Tom Corbett, didn't want an unsolved case to hurt his run for governor. Years later, in 2013, there was a claim by a former Hells Angels member that his cellmate confessed to murdering Ray, but no evidence ever corroborated this. According to the story, Ray had prosecuted this man and sent him to prison, and he wanted revenge. The informant even took investigators to a property near Lewisburg where he claimed Ray's body was left. But there was a catch. He refused to show the exact location unless he was granted immunity. Nothing ever came of this lead, leaving the case stuck in limbo. Another theory speculated by some tied Ray to Jerry Sandusky, the disgraced Penn State football coach and convicted child predator. Back in 1998, Ray decided not to press charges against Sandusky due to insufficient evidence. But by the time Ray went missing, there was no indication he was revisiting the case. Investigators found no connection, but that hasn't stopped people from speculating. Ray was financially secure, his relationship with Patty seemed solid, and he kept up with his bills. So, what happened? Could he have been blackmailed or threatened? His focus on clearing his laptop's hard drive has led some to believe so, but no evidence has ever supported this idea. Some people think Ray might have left on his own. There's a theory he was inspired by the case of a Cleveland police chief, Mel Wiley, who disappeared in the 1980s to start a new life. Ray had mentioned the case to someone at some point, but details are fuzzy. It's worth noting that Ray had ties to Slovenia. He spoke the language fluently and had traveled there before. He also knew some Russian. Could he have started over abroad? There were even sightings of someone who looked like Ray, including an off-duty officer and a bartender in Wilkes Bar who claimed to have seen him watching a baseball game in a bar. But none of these leads went anywhere. Here's another bizarre twist. In 2003, 2 years before Ray vanished, the body of Jonathan Luna, a federal prosecutor, was found in Pennsylvania. Luna had been stabbed 36 times and drowned. Some have wondered if Ray's disappearance is somehow connected to Luna's murder, but no evidence ties the two cases together. And then there was the strange case of a man arrested in Utah in 2011 for trespassing. He had no ID, refused to give his name, and bore a resemblance to Ray. For a brief moment, people wondered if it could be him. But the mystery didn't last long. The man was identified as Philip T. Beavers of New Mexico, ending that speculation. In 2011, Ray was declared legally dead, though his case remains open. That same year, a reporter named Rebecca Knight released a podcast called Final Argument, diving deep into the case. And in 2021, Bob Buhner, still fighting for answers, shared that he had received new information. He believed it pointed to people who knew what happened to Ray and how he was lured to Lewisburg. Bob passed the lead to investigators, but didn't live to see it resolved. He died later that year. Today, Ray Gricar's family and friends, along with many others, are still waiting for justice and closure. What happened to Ray? Will we ever know? If you have thoughts or theories about this case, feel free to share them in the comments. And that's Ray's story, or at least what we know of it. Almost 20 years later, his disappearance is still a mystery. Was it foul play? Did he leave on purpose? Or is it something we haven't even thought of yet? I'd love to hear what you think happened. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's talk about it. Thanks for watching and spending your time with me today. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.